Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour.
Hello again, everyone. After a short move on Thursday, June 25th, Carol, Jasper, and I have been in Boston all week. On Friday, we drove to what is known as Boston Common, a large 50-acre park in downtown Boston. Dating from 1634, Boston Common is the oldest city park in the United States. The reason we came to Boston Common was that depending on which end you start at, this is one end of Boston's famous Freedom Trail. The Freedom Trail was an idea conceived by a local journalist in 1951. His idea was to build a pedestrian trail to link important local landmarks. Boston's mayor decided to put the idea into action. The Freedom Trail is an easily walkable 2.5 miles long and links 16 historic landmarks. The trail is marked by 2 red bricks, bordered by a gray brick on each side. Following the red brick trail up the hill from Boston Common, we came to the next stop, the Massachusetts State House. The Massachusetts State House is the state capitol of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The building was completed in January 1798 and houses the Massachusetts State Legislature and the offices of the Governor of Massachusetts. It is the oldest continually running state capitol building in America. This building is the second State House, but we'll come back to that. Walking back down the hill, we came to our third stop, the Park Street Church. The 217-foot-tall Park Street Church was founded in 1804 and is an active evangelical church. Typical Sunday service attracts over 2,000 people. Our fourth stop was the Old Granary Burying Ground. Founded in 1660, the Granary Burying Ground is Boston's third oldest cemetery. It is the final resting place of many notable Revolutionary War-era patriots, including Paul Revere, the 5 victims of the Boston Massacre, and 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Robert Payne. This is the marker for Paul Revere. We apparently missed the King's Chapel and Burial Ground, which were the 5th stop on the trail, but here is number 6, the Old South Meeting Hall, with its tall steeple on top. Unfortunately, it blends in with all of the other buildings nearby. The Old South Meeting House was built in 1729. It gained fame when, being the largest building in Boston at the time, 5,000 colonists gathered on December 16, 1773, to organize the Boston Tea Party. This is the inside of the Old South Meeting House, looking from the back toward the front. This is from the side, looking down into the high back seats. And this is taken from the front of the meeting house, looking toward the back. This was the spiral staircase leading up to the 2nd and 3rd floors. Our 6th stop on the Freedom Trail was a marker on the sidewalk documenting the Boston Massacre. Tensions ran high in Boston in early 1770. More than 2,000 British soldiers occupied the city of 16,000 colonists and tried to enforce British tax laws. American colonists rebelled against the taxes, rallying the cry, "No taxation without representation." To protest the taxes, patriots often vandalized stores selling British goods and intimidated store merchants and their customers. On February 22nd, a mob of patriots attacked a known British Loyalist store. During this incident, an 11-year-old boy was accidentally shot, further enraging the Patriots. Several days later, a fight broke out between local workers and British soldiers. It ended without serious bloodshed, but helped to set the stage for a bloody incident yet to come. On March 5, 1770, a street brawl between American colonists and a lone British soldier quickly escalated to a chaotic, bloody slaughter. Once the first shot by a British soldier rang out, other soldiers opened fire, killing 5 colonists and wounding 6. The conflict energized anti-British sentiment and paved the way for the American Revolution. Our 7th stop on the Freedom Trail was the Old Country Bookstore. Yes, this building was once a bookstore. It was built in 1718 as a residence and apothecary, which is a drugstore. It became a bookstore in 1828. From 1832 to 1865, it was home to one of the most important publishing companies in the United States, and the Old Corner Bookstore became a meeting place for such authors as Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Charles Dickens, and Oliver Wendell Holmes. Our 8th stop on the Freedom Trail was Boston's Old City Hall. Boston's Old City Hall was home to the City Council from 1865 to 1969. It was one of the first buildings in the French Second Empire style to be built in the United States. After the building's completion, the Second Empire style was used extensively elsewhere in Boston and for many other buildings throughout the United States. Up the street from the old City Hall was the old State House. We have already seen the current State House, but the first State House was built in 1713 and was the seat of the Massachusetts General Court until 1798. The old State House is one of the oldest public buildings in the United States and is the oldest public building in Boston. It now serves as a museum. After the project of erecting a public market house in Boston has been discussed for several years, slave merchant Peter Faneuil offered to build a suitable building at his own expense as a gift to the town in 1740. There was strong public opposition to market houses at this time in history because of their connection to slavery, but the offer to build the market was accepted unanimously. Funded in parts by profits from his slave trading, the building was completed in an English country market style in 1742, with an open ground floor and an assembly room above. Perched high on this building is a large gold-colored grasshopper weather vane. The grasshopper is recognized around the world as a symbol of commerce. After Faneuil Hall, we walked to Paul Revere's house, but no pictures or videos were allowed inside the house. This original 3-story house was built about 1680, making it the oldest house in downtown Boston, but Paul Revere was not the original owner of this house. Paul Revere owned this house from 1770 to 1800, although he and his family may have lived elsewhere for periods in the 1780s and 1790s. In 1902, Revere's great-grandson, John P. Reynolds, Jr., purchased the building to prevent demolition. In April 1908, the Paul Revere House opened its doors to the public as one of the earliest historic house museums in the United States. Despite the substantial renovation that returned the house to its original 1700s appearance, 90% of the structure is original to 1680. The 2 bedrooms upstairs contain several pieces of furniture believed to have belonged to the Revere family. After visiting Paul Revere's house, it was a short walk to the North Church, where an unknown person or persons hung 2 lanterns in the church steeple on April 18, 1775, warning Paul Revere and his compatriots that the British were using the quicker seaside route. But did you ever wonder who hung those lanterns? Officially, no one knows. The 2 men who are suspected of hanging the lanterns were both British subjects, so hanging the lanterns would have amounted to treason. Here are some pictures of the inside of the North Church. After the North Church, we walked up a steep hill to Copp's Hill Burying Ground. Copp's Hill Burying Ground is another historic cemetery in Boston. It was established in 1659, making it Boston's 2nd oldest cemetery. After spending some time looking around the Copp's Hill Burying Ground, we continued up a long hill to the Bunker Hill Monument. The Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on June 17, 1775, during the first stage of the American Revolutionary War. On June 13, 1775, after learning that the British were planning to send troops out from Boston to fortify the unoccupied hills surrounding the city, which would have given them control of Boston Harbor, 1,200 colonial troops stealthily occupied Bunker Hill and Breed's Hill. By daybreak on June 17th, the British became aware of the presence of colonial troops and mounted an attack against them that day. 2 assaults on colonial positions were driven back with significant British casualties, but on the third and final attack, the colonists ran out of ammunition. The battle was a tactical win for the British, but proved to be a sobering experience for them. They incurred many more casualties than the Americans. The battle demonstrated that an inexperienced militia was able to stand up to regular army troops in battle. Our final stop on the Freedom Trail was the 203-foot-long USS Constitution floating in Boston Harbor. The USS Constitution is the world's oldest ship of any kind still afloat. It is a 3-masted wooden-hulled frigate, launched in 1797. The USS Constitution is most noted for her actions during the War of 1812 against England, when she captured numerous merchant ships and defeated 5 British warships. During the battle against one of those British warships, she earned the nickname Old Ironsides because one of the Constitution's crew members noticed that the British ship's cannonballs seemed to be bouncing off the Constitution's tough oak sides. The USS Constitution was rated as a 44-gun frigate, but she often carried more than 50 guns at a time. The guns and cannons were designed to be completely portable and were often exchanged between ships as situations warranted. The USS Constitution was retired from active service in 1881 and used in various roles until being designated a museum ship in 1907. In 1997, she sailed approximately 100 miles under her own power from Boston Harbor to Marblehead, Massachusetts, and back to commemorate her 200th birthday. With that, I'm going to call an end to our second week in Massachusetts. The Freedom Trail was an awesome way to spend a day in Boston, but I would suggest that you plan to spend at least 2 days on the trail. Carol and I completed the entire trail in 1 day with Jasper, but then went back without Jasper the second day so that we could get into some of the buildings. Massachusetts is the 42nd state that Carol and I have visited together. We will be leaving for Vermont on Thursday. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching.